He was born to be king, but destined for scandal. Prince Albert Victor, the handsome and charming grandson of Queen Victoria, was once the shining hope of the British monarchy. But behind his royal title and aristocratic image lay a life steeped in controversy, mystery, and tragic romance. Known affectionately as Eddy to those closest to him, his story was anything but affectionate to the public eye. From struggling in classrooms to igniting whispers of forbidden affairs, from being at the heart of the infamous Cleveland Street scandal to becoming the subject of wild speculation as Jack the Ripper, Albert Victor's life played out like a Victorian thriller. And just when redemption seemed within reach through a royal engagement to the beloved Mary of Teck, death struck with brutal swiftness, sealing his fate at just 28. Was he a misunderstood royal caught in the wrong era, or a ticking time bomb that history defused too soon? This is the untold, hauntingly human story of the prince who never got to wear the crown. Prince Albert Victor, Duke of Clarence and Avondale, born on January 8, 1864, at Frogmore House, Windsor, was the eldest son of Albert Edward, Prince of Wales, later King Edward VII, and Princess Alexandra of Denmark. As the grandson of Queen Victoria, he was second in line to the British throne after his father. With his striking good looks, tall and slender frame, and charming demeanor, Albert Victor was considered one of the most attractive princes of the British royal family in the late 19th century. However, his life was overshadowed by controversy, scandal, and a tragic death, making him one of the most contentious figures in British royal history. Affectionately known as Eddy by family and close friends, Albert Victor led a brief but tumultuous life. From academic struggles and complex romantic entanglements to scandals that rocked the monarchy, he left behind a legacy that was both tragic and intriguing. His sudden death in 1892, just weeks before his planned wedding to Princess Mary of Teck, brought an abrupt end to a life filled with promise but marred by infamy. From a young age, Albert Victor displayed an unusual disposition, described as having disquieting energy. One close associate remarked that he would never ascend the throne, hinting at his perceived unsuitability for the role of future king. His tutor, John Neil Dalton, who accompanied him for many years, described his mind as abnormally stagnant, suggesting significant difficulties in absorbing knowledge. Historians have proposed various theories to explain these challenges. Some suggest he may have inherited deafness from his mother, Princess Alexandra, which impacted his learning ability. Others speculate that he suffered from pet mal seizures, a mild form of epilepsy, which could have caused lapses in focus and delayed intellectual development. Whatever the cause, Albert Victor never excelled academically, a notable anomaly for a prince expected to lead the nation. Despite his academic shortcomings, Albert Victor possessed an undeniable physical allure. With his tall stature, slender build, and handsome features, he effortlessly drew attention. His appearance became a tool to compensate for his intellectual deficits, particularly in social settings, where he wielded his charm with ease. When he enrolled at the University of Cambridge in 1883, Albert Victor continued to struggle with academic demands. His professors frequently complained about his lack of focus and limited scholarly aptitude. However, he thrived in social circles. At Cambridge, he forged a close friendship with Oscar Browning, a scholar notorious for his extravagant lifestyle and penchant for hosting wild parties. Browning, known for indulging young, attractive male students, seemed particularly fond of Albert Victor, helping him become a prominent figure in Cambridge's elite social scene. Before entering Cambridge, the royal family appointed James Kenneth Stephen, a talented and sensitive poet, as Albert Victor's tutor and companion. Stephen, a distant relative of writer Virginia Woolf, was known for his striking looks and literary prowess, but also suffered from bipolar disorder, which caused erratic mood swings. During their time at Cambridge, the relationship between Stephen and Albert Victor grew unusually close, prompting later historians to speculate about a romantic connection between the two. Some records suggest Stephen harbored deep feelings for Albert Victor, and the prince may have reciprocated, though the extent of their relationship remains unclear. Stephen openly criticized Albert Victor's reading and academic abilities, describing him as deficient in private correspondence. Nevertheless, their bond appeared to transcend the typical teacher-student dynamic, and Albert Victor's death later drove Stephen into a severe mental collapse. Details about Albert Victor's personal life during his university years are scarce, largely due to the royal family's efforts to suppress information. However, letters exchanged between him and his private physician from 1885 to 1886 reveal that he frequently took medication for GLEAT, a medical term used at the time to describe discharge caused by gonorrhea. This suggests that Albert Victor engaged in risky sexual behavior, leading to significant health issues. Though kept secret at the time, these revelations later tarnished his reputation when they surfaced. In July 1889, a shocking scandal erupted that would forever tarnish the reputation of Prince Albert Victor, Duke of Clarence and Avondale. London police, acting on a tip, raided a male brothel located at 19 Cleveland Street, in the heart of the city's Fitzrovia district. This establishment was no ordinary house of vice. It catered exclusively to an elite clientele, including aristocrats, politicians, and other influential figures from Britain's upper echelons. The raid uncovered a network of young male telegraph boys employed as prostitutes, serving the desires of wealthy patrons in a society where homosexuality was not only taboo, but illegal under the Labouchere Amendment of 1885, which criminalized gross indecency between men. Among those implicated was Lord Arthur Somerset, a trusted equerry and close confidant of Albert Victor. Somerset, a member of the prestigious Somerset family and superintendent of the Prince of Wales's stables, was identified as a frequent client of the brothel. His arrest and the subsequent investigation sent shockwaves through the British establishment. Almost immediately, whispers began to circulate that Albert Victor himself was a regular visitor to Cleveland Street. These rumors were fueled by the prince's already questionable reputation, his known penchant for socializing in London's seedier quarters, and his association with Somerset. The Cleveland Street scandal posed a direct threat to the monarchy's moral authority at a time when Queen Victoria's reign was synonymous with strict Victorian values. The public, already fascinated by the private lives of the royals, devoured sensational newspaper reports that hinted at royal involvement without directly naming Albert Victor, as libel laws and deference to the monarchy prevented explicit accusations. The scandal raised uncomfortable questions about the moral integrity of the royal family, with some newspapers subtly implying that the heir to the throne's inner circle was entangled in depravity. To protect his son and preserve the monarchy's reputation, Albert Edward, Prince of Wales, intervened decisively. He exerted his considerable influence to suppress the investigation, ordering Scotland Yard to halt further inquiries into the brothel's clientele. Prosecutors were instructed to drop charges against all clients, including Somerset, who quietly fled to France to avoid prosecution. This intervention effectively shielded Albert Victor from any formal legal consequences, but it came at a cost. The abrupt termination of the investigation fueled public suspicion, as many interpreted it as evidence of a royal cover-up. The lack of transparency left the scandal unresolved, and Albert Victor's name became indelibly linked to one of the most notorious episodes in Victorian history. For the rest of his life and beyond, the Cleveland Street affair cast a long shadow over his legacy, reinforcing his image as a reckless and morally compromised prince. As the Cleveland Street scandal dominated headlines and gossip in London, the royal family sought to distance Albert Victor from the controversy. In late 1889, he embarked on a pre-planned 7-month tour of India, a strategic move designed to rehabilitate his public image and shift attention to his role as a representative of the British Empire. The tour, which included visits to Bombay, Calcutta, Madras, and other key colonial cities, was meticulously choreographed to showcase the prince's charm and royal dignity. He participated in official ceremonies, met with Indian royalty, and attended lavish banquets, all under the watchful eye of his handlers, who ensured his behavior remained impeccable, at least in public. However, Albert Victor's penchant for romantic entanglements followed him to India. During his travels, he became involved with Marjorie Haddon, the wife of a British civil engineer stationed in the colony. Haddon, described as a vivacious and attractive woman, caught the prince's eye, and their brief liaison, though discreet at the time, would later prove consequential. The exact nature of their relationship remains unclear, but it was significant enough to leave a lasting impact. Years later, in 1893, long after Albert Victor's death, Marjorie Haddon resurfaced in England with a sensational claim. She alleged that she had given birth to a son fathered by the late prince. Her story, which she presented to the press and royal authorities, sparked a media frenzy. Haddon claimed the child, named Clarence Guy Gordon Haddon, was conceived during her time with Albert Victor in India. The royal family, still reeling from the prince's scandals, dismissed the claim as baseless, and historical evidence supports their position. No credible documentation or testimony corroborates Haddon's story, and the timeline of her alleged pregnancy raises significant doubts. Most historians believe her claim was either a fabrication or a case of mistaken identity, possibly motivated by a desire for financial gain or notoriety. Nevertheless, the controversy forced Albert Victor's legal representatives to address the issue publicly. In a rare admission, the prince's lawyer confirmed that Albert Victor had engaged in some relations with Haddon during his Indian tour, a statement that, while vague, was damning in the context of Victorian morality. This acknowledgement further eroded the prince's posthumous reputation, reinforcing the public's perception of him as a libertine incapable of restraint. The Haddon affair, though a footnote in his life, underscored his inability to escape the consequences of his impulsive behavior, even thousands of miles from home. In 1890, Albert Victor embarked on a deeply passionate and ultimately tragic romance with Princess Helene of Orleans, the daughter of Philippe, Count of Paris, a pretender to the French throne living in exile in England. Helene, a strikingly beautiful and intelligent woman, was known for her grace, wit, and strong Catholic faith. The two met at a society event, and their mutual attraction was immediate. Their courtship blossomed quickly, marked by private meetings, exchanged letters, and a shared sense of longing for a future together. For Albert Victor, whose romantic life had been defined by fleeting and often scandalous liaisons, Helene represented a rare opportunity for genuine love and stability. However, their relationship faced an insurmountable obstacle: religion. Helene was a devout Roman Catholic, while the British royal family, as defenders of the Protestant Church of England, adhered strictly to Anglicanism. The Act of Settlement 1701 explicitly barred Catholics from marrying into the line of succession, and any union between Albert Victor and Helene would have required her to renounce her faith, a prospect that posed both personal and political challenges. Determined to overcome this barrier, Helene proposed converting to Protestantism, a bold and selfless offer that demonstrated her commitment to Albert Victor. Her willingness to abandon her lifelong faith was supported by Albert Victor's parents, the Prince and Princess of Wales, who saw the match as a way to stabilize their son's chaotic personal life. The couple's hopes rested on securing approval from Helene's father, the Count of Paris, a staunch Catholic who viewed his family's faith as a cornerstone of their identity. To their dismay, he vehemently opposed the conversion, declaring that he would rather disown Helene than allow her to abandon Catholicism. In a desperate bid to salvage their love, Helene took the extraordinary step of appealing directly to Pope Leo XIII, seeking a papal dispensation to convert. She traveled to Rome, accompanied by a confidant, to present her case, arguing that her conversion was motivated by love and a desire to serve the British monarchy. However, the Pope, wary of the political implications of allowing a high-profile Catholic to join the Protestant British royal family, denied her request. This rejection was a devastating blow, effectively ending any hope of a union between Helene and Albert Victor. The couple's separation was heart-wrenching. Helene, devastated by the collapse of her dreams, retreated to her family's estate in France, while Albert Victor, grappling with his own grief, returned to his royal duties. The emotional toll of the failed romance lingered, and Albert Victor's sisters later revealed that Helene was his one true love. They disclosed a poignant detail. When Albert Victor died in 1892, he was buried with a small coin given to him by Helene, worn around his neck as a symbol of their unfulfilled love. This token, a private testament to their bond, underscored the depth of their connection and the tragedy of their thwarted aspirations. Beginning in 1890, Albert Victor's health began to deteriorate, marked by symptoms that puzzled his physicians. Official records state that he suffered from fever, or gout, diagnoses that were common but vague in the Victorian era. Modern historians, however, propose a more troubling explanation. Albert Victor likely contracted a venereal disease, possibly gonorrhea or syphilis, during his earlier years of promiscuity. Evidence from letters exchanged with his doctor in the mid-1880s, which mentioned treatment for gleet, a symptom of gonorrhea, supports this theory. The recurrence of such a disease could have caused chronic fatigue, joint pain, and other symptoms that weakened him significantly, though he continued to fulfill his public engagements to maintain appearances. In late 1891, another scandal emerged when rumors linked Albert Victor to Lydia Miller, a working-class music hall dancer and actress. Little is known about Miller, but she was described as a charismatic performer who frequented London's vibrant theater scene. The nature of her relationship with Albert Victor, if it existed, remains speculative, as no definitive evidence confirms their involvement. However, the timing of their alleged acquaintance coincided with a tragic event. Shortly after meeting the prince, Miller took her own life by swallowing carbolic acid, a common method of suicide in the Victorian era. Miller's death sparked intense public interest and media speculation. Newspapers, eager for sensational stories, hinted at a connection between her suicide and her supposed relationship with Albert Victor, though they stopped short of direct accusations. An official inquest was launched, but its findings were inconclusive, and no evidence explicitly tied Miller's death to the prince. Some historians suggest that Miller's suicide may have been driven by personal struggles unrelated to Albert Victor, such as financial hardship or mental health issues, which were prevalent among performers of her class. Buckingham Palace, acutely aware of the damage another scandal could inflict, allegedly orchestrated a cover-up to distance Albert Victor from the tragedy. According to some accounts, the royal family enlisted Lord Charles Montague, a minor noble with ties to the court, to act as a scapegoat, diverting attention from the prince. Whether Montague willingly participated or was coerced remains unclear, but the effort failed to quell public suspicion. The Lydia Miller incident, though brief, added another layer to Albert Victor's reputation as a magnet for controversy, further alienating him from a public already skeptical of his character. Mary of Teck, Albert Victor's fiancée, was profoundly shaken by his sudden death. From planning a fairy tale wedding, she was thrust into organizing her fiancé's funeral. In a poignant gesture, Mary placed a bouquet of orange blossoms, symbolizing her bridal wreath, on Albert Victor's coffin as a final farewell. Albert Victor's death shifted the line of succession to his younger brother, Prince George, who later became King George V. George was seen as a more responsible and capable heir, and a 1964 biographer described Albert Victor's death as an act of divine mercy, as it paved the way for George's reign. Remarkably, just a year after Albert Victor's death, George married Mary of Teck, his brother's former fiancée. Though initially arranged, their marriage became one of the most enduring and successful in British royal history. However, George's inheritance of both the throne and his brother's fiancée led some to view it as a betrayal of Albert Victor. Albert Victor's legacy remains overshadowed by the scandals and rumors that defined his life. Even after his death, conspiracy theories persisted, with some claiming he succumbed to a recurrence of venereal disease rather than pneumonia. Stories of his promiscuity, tangled romantic affairs, and the Jack the Ripper allegations have cemented his status as a figure of fascination in history. Prince Albert Victor was a complex figure, embodying both the allure and potential of royalty and the chaos of personal scandal. His brief life, marked by academic struggles, controversial relationships, and a tragic death on the eve of his wedding, left an indelible mark on history. While remembered as the scandalous royal, his story is also one of a man caught between royal expectations and personal desires, a tragedy of an era he never had the chance to overcome.